Hey, welcome to our Victory at Home interviews. We're so excited that you've joined us for one of these, and we'd encourage you to check them all out. And we're trusting that as you watch this and learn from our guests, that there will be at least one nugget of gold that is super helpful and impactful for you and your home to help you thrive. Okay, so here we are. This is called Victory at Home, and we are doing podcasts to learn, interviews. We're talking about our home, our environment that we live in, the atmosphere that we live in, and in your guys' case, that has a lot to do with family and so on, because you got these young families. So today our guests are Kelly Boisclair and Jessika Kopp, and it's very fun to have the both of you here, and I'm excited to listen and learn and hear what you guys have to say. So why don't we start by just letting you introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about who you are and your families and so on.
Sure. I'm Kelly. This is the first church that my family came to when we were like around 11 years old, so been at this church for over 20 years. I been married for almost 15 years.
Wow.
So I met my husband now when we were 9, really cool. We have 2 little girls, Brooklyn, who is 8, and Selah, who's 3. We homeschool. I work here at the church, and yeah, I'm involved in like our whole homeschool community too, teaching there. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, good to have you, Kelly. And
I'm Jessika. How long have we been at this church? It's been a while. It's been 14 years
14 years,
now.
yeah.
We've been married, my husband and I, for 13 years. We have 4 children, 11, 9, 6, and 3.
Nice.
11, 9, 6, and 3.
Well done.
Yeah, we homeschool also. We've been
Could
doing
Garrett do that, though? Could he name the ages like that? We'll see,
Actually,
right?
probably.
Yeah.
He's, birth dates, ages, yes. No, we homeschool as well. We've been doing it for about 7 years.
Okay.
I teach dance. I'm a dance instructor at the Church of God.
Yep.
And I've been doing that for 5-6 years now, and love that. So we are involved in the homeschooling community and in church here, and are busy with 4 littles.
Very cool. And I remember your wedding 13 years ago.
Oh,
That was one of my
yes.
first events at this church.
Yeah,
Just going to
you
your
had just
guys'
come,
wedding,
and it was the awkward, like,
Yes.
they're the new pastors. They have to come to our wedding, but
Who are these people, right? And we're both getting to know each other, and that was wild. Did you know, that was 13 years ago. 25 years ago, when I got married, the exact same thing. Our pastors were transitioning, and the new pastor came to our wedding, but the old pastor knew us, right, and had pastored us. And anyway, it was a fun deal, but 13 years, and here you are.
Yeah.
And Kelly, you 13 years ago would have been back and forth from Thailand a little bit. You guys were doing some Bible college and missions, and ESL, teaching English.
13 years.
Yeah.
We were there over a course of 2 years, and so we did English. I taught English. My husband did a little bit of media there.
They
then,
left right before our wedding to go back to Thailand.
Wow.
I'm still a little bit bitter. Like,
Memories.
15 years, we're doing another wedding, right?
Reminisce all day about this stuff. It's fun to think back all that time. But here we are, 13 years later, 15 years later, married, 13. So tell me a little bit about what's it like trying to make home life a place that's, I guess, positive, faith-filled, a good experience. What are some of the challenges of trying to have victory at home?
Wow. I think in the present day, with this whole COVID craziness, for me, one of the challenges has been I like to do new things. I get restless easy, so I like to do big things and new things and exciting things, and finding contentment in mundane, everyday things, because I've not been able to do and plan and go places, has been probably one of the things for sure this last year that's been a little bit of a struggle and a little bit of a challenge, just trying to figure out how does that look to actually find contentment in everyday things that don't necessarily breathe life into you, but you need to appreciate them and be thankful and be grateful for the things that you have. So that's been a neat.
Very cool. And COVID accentuates that.
Yes.
But in a sense, home has a sense of the mundane wrapped up in it because it is our daily life. Like, and so figuring out how do I have contentment in doing the same things day by day by day by day.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a challenge. Yeah. Okay, so we'll get at some of how you overcome that challenge or work on that. That's one of the challenges. You guys got more?
Yeah, I think the two that came to my head first, like, yep.
Endless, yeah.
Would you like it to
Let me tell you. I think in parenting in this age, so my parents, when they parented, there were books and a few TV shows, but today there is social media. There are many things yelling at you on how to be a parent, and so who do you grab from? Where do you grab from? And so I tend to just get overwhelmed and shrink in and just ignore it all instead of listening to it. So that is one of the issues is social media, I think, has been definitely a hindrance, but also there's been fruit to it too. And the other thing is like our personalities. So now we have 4 different personalities in our household.
Yes.
And like
preach, girl.
Yeah, like how can I am an introvert, I have an extroverted husband, I'm learning, I'm seeing my oldest become extroverted, my youngest showing introvert. I'm like, how do I shuffle and handle and juggle these?
And I think it's worse because we homeschool.
Yeah,
we're just there all the time.
Okay. Okay.
And this year we're there all the time.
Which, you know, we were like, this is what we want to do, but...
So navigating those different personalities, how you want things to function, how each person wants things to function, how they thrive, is another challenge.
I think, like we actually were just talking about this last night. I often come to her because my husband and her are very similar. And I'm like, I don't know how to talk to introverted people. Explain my husband to me. Because as an extrovert, and especially like during COVID and not being, you know, with all the people, it's like, my husband comes home and I'm like, and he's like, let me be.
And vice versa. Yeah, like David and Jessika are very similar. I'm like, hey, we're dealing with this, and she's like, I know how David feels. I was like, oh, like okay, like tell me, like, and so that's
totally.
I think.
Okay, so dealing with all the different personalities and challenges within that. Yeah. Anything else come to mind?
Yeah, I think one of the other struggles that I have had lately is as I dive more into my identity and who I am, is finding out that I have a real big problem with just being.
Okay.
Like being with my kids, being with my husband. I'm very task orientated, so it's like if I don't have boxes in my head that are constantly being checked, I feel unproductive and lazy and like need to be doing more. And I think I've been challenged lately just to be like, you need to learn to just be. Just be in the moment, enjoy the moment. Like I don't have to be watching a movie and doing my grocery list and doing something else, which is very typical. It's something that I do, but just being. It's been
It is challenging, right?
Yeah.
We're not created to be human doings.
Right.
We're created to be human beings.
Yeah.
And figuring out how to live that is for those of us who are more activistic in our nature is challenging. And yet that's what God made us for, at least to have our doing flow from our being, rather than just doing, and then forgetting our sense of being, right? We lose our identity.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a good place to start. Let's start with those and let's see how we build from here. So let's talk about contentment in the mundane. So at home, right, there's always laundry that needs doing. There's always dishes. There's another meal.
Oh yeah.
There's, just the day-to-day, right? Whether it's in every aspect of life. I mean, those are just chores, but it's true about just, there's morning, and there's evening, and then there's, you do it all over again tomorrow. So how do you find contentment in the midst of that? Especially with COVID now. You can't even go away from the province or whatever.
I think one of the ways that I've kind of leaned into the idea of being content is having to come to terms with the fact that I don't have to love this. Right? Like I don't have to love doing the dishes, or even like playing with my kids. Like some people
Mhm.
are amazing with getting on the floor, playing with their kids, and
Yep.
you know, doing those things. I'm like, I actually don't have to love these
Yep.
things, but sometimes I just need to sacrifice and do these things for my family, for myself,
Yep.
for just being like obedient, or you know,
Yep.
keeping the house rolling. But yeah, I'm like, I think there was a freeing.
Oh, I love that. It's a
The
huge
free-
realization in life. I think we're raised to think, especially in our culture right now, entertainment-based culture, everything has to be fun. Everything has to be awesome. Everything has to be exciting.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, actually, boredom's a good thing for us
Yeah.
sometimes, right? And struggling sometimes is good. I love that little lesson. So a kid, say a grade 4 kid, is working on math, and they're hating it. Like, it's hard, and they're struggling. And it's like to pause and say, you feel that right now? You feel how your brain hurts? That's a good thing. That means the muscle of your brain is being worked,
Yes.
right? And that actually means you're learning. So as much as in the moment you might, that's actually going to build you. So not everything has to be a party.
Yes, right.
Fun, high, and it's okay to have those disciplined moments.
Yeah. And I think too, like, the idea that you can be called to more than one thing. Like, I can be called to being a mom and being at home and doing these things, these daily things, and it not bring me as much life as either like leading worship or teaching dance. Like, it can be a different thing. I can be called to something and it not be the be all and end all. Like,
Right. It doesn't
right?
have to. Yeah.
Yeah, so because I am called to do a good job
Yeah.
with my children and with my house and stuff, but that doesn't mean I necessarily love it all the time.
Love it all the time. And do you think sometimes we compare ourselves with others? So we might find somebody who does love it all the time, and then we're like, well, then there must be something wrong with me, or I must be a bad person, right?
Proverbs 31.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Did you ever hate the Proverbs
Yes.
31 woman?
Oh,
That's so funny. I mean, she's anonymous, right? But
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
the perfect,
Yeah.
whatever, housewife, mom, something,
Yeah.
something.
It's like, well, I just failed at life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's huge. Okay, maybe let's come back to maybe the feeling of failure, or the feeling of I am a failure.
Yeah.
Because I think there's something there too about home life
Yeah.
that can be challenging. Anything else you want to say about the daily mundane?
I feel like I'm okay with it, actually. It's having to be aware that maybe my husband or my daughter are not okay with that.
Okay.
So I can just slide and do the mundane and be like, this is fine.
Yeah.
We're fine.
Yeah.
But then I have to be aware of what's happening in our family as a whole, because then we start to break and fall apart because,
Right.
they're not fine.
They're
Like,
not
this
fine.
is mundane for them, and they're like
Sure.
falling off of it.
Sure.
And I'm like, so I just have to have my radar out for those things.
Yeah. So an awareness of what's going on with everybody.
Yeah.
Which brings us to that whole, family dynamic, or the dynamics of we have different personalities in this house, and we all have to find a way to get along. I don't know if you guys have heard the saying, but parenting is like a box of chocolates. So, you never know what you're going to get, right? You're like, oh, that's what that one is, So how do you handle that? What do you do to live in a home with different kinds of folks?
Well, what I didn't do was I didn't talk to other people. So I was just like, ugh, like I became frozen. I was like, okay, I guess I have to deal with this on my own by myself and just kind of navigate it. And also too, when my second was born, I totally expected a carbon copy of my first.
Yeah.
I was like, they're going to be exactly the same. And they're not the same. And so there's lots of resources, and I found I had to be vulnerable with people and be like, hey, I think I'm failing because my one kid's acting this way, I'm acting this way, I'm burning out, they're burning out. And so then finding resources and letting people into that messiness with me.
Someone else's perspective
Yes.
can be so helpful, right?
Yeah.
It's weird how, if by ourselves, we're in our own little world. We need other people to help us from our own version of crazy, right?
Yeah.
Which we all have. But what's interesting is in a home, we have our collective version of crazy. So we get in our own little bubble, and we think we have our own challenges, our own ways, and we don't realize everybody's dealing with that. Like, the beauty of humanity is I share my struggle, and somebody else goes, me too, or me too in different ways, but, you know, then, so getting out of that world and getting advice, hearing from other people, becoming vulnerable.
Which is totally not, like, I tend to be a perfectionist, so I'm like, I'm not doing this right. So now I have to let people know that I'm not doing this right. And in the world, I remember Brooklyn was born, Pinterest was very popular. And so you learn how to be the perfect mom through birthday parties and making sure the room's beautiful. And I was like, yep. But that's just the outward stuff. I need to work on the inward stuff too. And simple things like a personality test to see like what my kids are like and why are they like that, and like do I have like I remember Brooklyn, what was that one test we did with the kids? The flag
pages that Mark Gunger shares, right?
So he has like a game that we that you can put them through.
We'll try to reference that somewhere in one of our Victory at Home resources, but they call them flag pages, and are they colors? Is that what you come out with, or?
Yeah, it's 4 countries.
Right. You're from fun country or perfect country or whatever they are, right?
Yeah.
Because the kids is a little bit different. Hey, like there's it's a little bit different, but same lines.
Same idea. Yeah.
So that was helpful for you?
Very helpful. I was like, I don't know who this kid is. Like, she's my own daughter, and I feel like I'm like, you're a stranger. Right. And we're both in, like last week you mentioned, every new stage we go in, we're both new in that stage.
Yes.
My 7-year-old's now an 8-year-old. Well, she's new to that. And I'm like now a mother to an 8-year-old. Well, I'm new at that.
I think in that too, like one of the big things is that we, like you and I, our families, like we do life together, which is a huge thing, like in getting to know your children or even just the dynamics, because Kelly can speak into my kids or like into me about my kids with things I don't see, because she connects with my introverted children where I do not. And same with like Brooklyn. I'm like, that girl is me. Like I'm like, I get that, I understand that. So it's like doing life with other people, I think, is huge.
They see things you don't see, and they affirm things that maybe you believe but you're not confident about. And like you said earlier, Jessika, you know, it's like going to Ken and being like, I am struggling to understand my husband right now, but you know that personality better, can help explain what's going on here, and having a sounding board. And that could be in a small group, that can be in a ministry setting like a mom's group, or a ladies' Bible study, or there's 100 ways, and friendship, of course, is at the core of that, right? So actually, why don't we just bounce right there, because we're having fun talking about friendship. So you guys have modeled to me for these 13 years I've known you.
It's been a while.
This fun friendship thing. Like I always think, and I always share this with people, if you find a good friend, cherish that, right? Like that's gold. And you don't know from season to season of life what's going to happen, and sometimes I think people go through disappointments, this and that, but I just think any season of anyone's life, when you have a close friend, boy, thank God. Right, because that's pretty special. So what has that been like for you guys? What's the gift of friendship, challenges, I don't know, whatever you want to share with us on that.
Like, I feel like that's such a huge, broad question.
You know, in the Bible, it talks a little bit about, like, you know, when you stone sharpens stone.
Yep, like iron sharpens iron.
Exactly, iron sharpens iron. And I never wanted people to come into that. I didn't want people to see that I needed to be sharpened, and she's like, I'm coming in. I'm coming in. And I was like, and God knew, right? Like God, so we are opposites. Like we're opposites, but we have one strong foundation, and that's we both love Jesus. And I think that has been so firm, and like it just kind of it helped it grow even more when you have the same path and you're like, we're pursuing the same thing.
And I think too, like when our friendship was like really growing, we were the only young adults in this church. There was nobody else. And so we ran the youth group, and it was the 4 of us, and we did everything. Like it was just everything. Like it was just life. That's what happened, and it grew from being newly married to having babies to having more babies and starting a school journey, and it's just kind of grown through that, I think, Kate, just over time. But I think it's just a biblical principle. We were meant to be in community with people, right? And true community. There's such, in this world right now, there's such a superficial idea of what community is.
Okay.
And I think you can even come to church on a Sunday and leave and feel like you've not connected.
Totally. You can be lonely.
Right?
Absolutely. Lonely in a crowd.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's there's such a deep human need to just connect with somebody on such a deeper level and just share your life with them. That I don't know how people do it, because it definitely is something that I feel has been just
It
monumental.
Shaped who our families, I think, are now. I think it has. And too, we've had hard seasons. Has it been all roses? No. Mm-hmm. But if you can walk through that hard season, speak into each other's lives, or just hold each other's hands through those hard seasons.
Just make it through.
You're like, this is a lifer, And I agree with that. Being able to speak into each other's lives and then speak into our kids' lives. I want people who are comfortable with my friendship and stuff, and being I can speak into her kid's life. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm I feel there's lots of stories, lots of stories that we could tell where there's different moments where that's happened, where it's been different things where it's something happens, so the people we call, but it's we do life together, and I think that's really helped just having.
So doing life together, what does that look like? Does that mean you do a day off together? Go shopping, go to the beach.
I mean, those are highlights.
Okay.
But it's a daily, I feel we have daily check-ins without even knowing we have daily check-ins.
Right.
But we pursue the same thing. So when we started, it was youth group, and she's a dancer, and I was okay, I'll dance on your youth group team.
It's this odd thing where it's oh, Kelly does this, well now Jessika does it too, or Jessika does this, well now Kelly does this too.
Okay. Yeah. So it's getting interested in
each other.
But I mean, for us, we do Christmas together.
Yeah.
Right? And I think even in the things, it's just kind of expected. We're at this point where it's oh, we're doing this, and it's I'm not even going to invite you because you're expected to show up. That's just how it is. But I think through hard seasons, you were talking about, it's that's who you call. That's who you go to.
Okay, so sometimes it's when you're going through a difficulty or trial of some kind, then you're there for each other, and you not just there for each other, you're actually calling each other and saying, hey, this happened. Yeah. Now back to those. Okay, you're at each other's events or whatever, birthday parties, Christmas stuff, but you do stuff on your own too. Yeah, so. Do you ever have times where it's how come I didn't get invited? Or, do you know what I'm saying there?
Have life outside of...
Yeah, you have a life outside of each other.
We do.
Yeah,
and our circles will sometimes cross each other, but we do have friends in other circles too.
Yeah, so but it's kind of funny though, because it's even if we have friends in other circles, it's they kind of know who the other person is. You don't know me without knowing something about Kelly, or knowing it's just oh, I know you.
Yeah, and I mean, you both have family, parents and so on, that you hang out with, and I mean, you know each other's family, but then you also, I guess, respectfully bow out or whatever. If Jessica's going over to her parents' place, then the Boisclairs, aren't normally there.
You've been at my parents' place. Yeah. Actually, I met Kelly. I was at her parents' place. When I met her over Zoom when they were in Thailand.
Yeah.
Or was it Zoom? It wasn't Zoom. It was
Skype.
Yeah.
The day.
So it's both ends.
It's both ends, yeah. And I think if you are a friend that gets jealous when your friends hang out with other people and you're not, you're why wasn't I invited? Well, you got to deal with some things.
There's some internal things you got to figure out.
Yeah. And we've probably have had those conversations. Like, I wouldn't doubt it.
And then,
But
it's just, it's kind of moved past that. It's kind of moved, I feel like, more towards a family feeling where it's like, okay, see ya, I'll talk to you later. Like, it's just like, we just know we're just going to pick up.
And our husbands get along very well.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that's actually a really good key when you're finding other families to do life with. Your whole family needs to jive together.
Sure.
Yeah, so our husbands have a relationship outside of, like, the four of us hanging out or outside.
Right.
So,
So that helps too.
Yeah.
And again, not every friendship is going to be like that.
No.
So you're going to have all different kinds of friendships, right? You'll have some friendships where the wives get along really well, and other ones where the husbands get along really well, and some where both, and some where the kids get along great, and the parents don't seem to get along as great, and on it goes. You get all flavors and kinds, and you just thank God for whatever kind of friendship you have. And that's,
we always laugh because when we go out to supper, Dave and I order very similar. Billy and Garrett order very similar. It's like, oh yeah.
There it is. That's fun. Fun. Well, it's that has been a delight for me as a pastor and friend to watch you guys be a strength to each other, and we live in a lonely world, and it's amazing how our world is so connected and yet so disconnected. And I, as a pastor, I feel better about both of your spiritual walks and both of your family walks and all of those things, knowing you have each other, if that makes sense. So I just encourage all our viewers to just be praying and looking and gazing at life, saying, Lord, bring me friends. And at all different levels, at all different seasons and times. I don't think we can, notch it out and make it happen.
No.
But at least to pray it and intentionally work towards it and say, Lord, that would be a blessing. Yep. Neat. Okay, what was one of the other things? We'll do one more piece here. We did personalities.
Social media, I think.
Yeah, the overwhelm, right?
Overwhelm of just life.
Too much information. Sometimes not sure what to do with it all, how to handle it all.
I've been reading through this book, Mama Bear Apologetics is what it's called. And now I don't know anything about apologetics or anything like that, but the one thing they were teaching is the chew and spit method, right? So we're going to be faced with so many different things in our life, and the black and white's becoming harder.
Sure.
And so it's, in social media, it's like, what am I going to grab from it, and what am I going to be like, no, that's not what I need. And it's easy to follow the perfect social media Instagram lifers and see the pictures and want to, like, you see your shortcomings when you look at that, but you gotta check your heart with that too.
So did I hear you right? That's the chew and spit method? I just want to check that out. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's
not a...
Lovely.
I mean, I'm sure it's good.
Jesus said it, I knew it.
I love it. No, I love it. So there's some stuff where we just go, that's not for me, or that's not for this season, or that's not for right now. I think another word for that is discerning.
Yes,
right?
I think you're right.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I think, one of the ways that I think I combat the whole thing is when I do it usually when I plan my homeschooling year, but when I sit down and start planning, I had read this blog once that kind of just changed everything, where she said, I plan my rest first before I plan anything else, and then I start with priority one, like God, like husband, and all of this stuff, and doing that, it started to take what's actually important and put it into so this is what I would like to do, all the stuff that I look at on Pinterest or whatever, and be like, but this is actually what I need to be doing, and just like taking my priorities and just shifting them to, because if I drop these balls, this is a bad thing, right? So so it just shifts a little bit when I start planning, or even like planning my day or planning my week, starting with like, got to get those boxes checked, like what am I
and then maybe having clarity on some of that, what is my priorities, and I've thought that through. Then when I look into social media or the world of advice out there, I don't feel like I have to do it all, because I know what I actually have to do, and then what I can fit in on top of that's fine, but what I can't, it's no big deal. Okay. Sounds Good. Any resources you guys have used that you found helpful? Flip side of that?
Yeah, I mean, books have been really, really good. And it's so funny, we talked about community and rest. And I think for the last 2 years, God has just been helping me define what that looks like. And so I started with, and it's been shared, is The Rest of God by Mark Buchanan. And it's just perspective, right? Because I tend to go in my parenting, in my work, in everything, and then I burn out. And so, you know, Mary and Martha, I'm not sitting at Jesus' feet. I'm the one that's doing the dishes and not spending time with Jesus. And so I realized I had to shift that perspective. And so that was a really good resource.
I remember when you're reading that book, you know, there's this crazy book called The Rest of God, right? Mark Buchanan. And it's not a super easy read. It's not a terribly hard read either, but it's a real book, right? Like it's the real thing. And yet, I'll tell you, that book, like if people are interested in reading and interested in sort of growing faith-wise and reading something with a little more meat or a little more challenge in it, wow, is that book rich. Like it has some concepts and ideas and passion in it that is absolutely powerful. That guy lives and teaches in Calgary now. He's a professor at Ambrose. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, that after reading that, after we had got, the idea of Sabbath completely changed from not having one to actually being able to force myself to, you have to stop. You have to.
And you did some stuff for us on the Victory at Home resource on Sabbath. So for you, Sabbath is what? Do you take a day?
Yeah, so we had started doing this like a couple of years ago. But we usually, like, COVID's been a little bit weird, but usually it's like when Friday noon hit, it was done. Like, this is like months crashing now. The house has been cleaned. Everything was ready, and I just crashed. So it was like Friday noon to Saturday noon.
Okay,
right?
So it's a 24-hour.
Yeah, so it was a 24-hour period, but we could never find like a full day somewhere in our week.
Which, the Jewish Sabbath is evening, right? So it starts when the sun goes down.
It starts with the physical rest.
So what we do, our family, or Garrett kind of joins when he gets home, but we just focus on things that are good.
Right.
Like things that fill us up, right? So like the kids, we always have family night on Friday night, so it's like maybe that's going and getting a treat tonight, and like building into our family and doing something that like really replenishes us. And like for me, it's like talking to some of the people who mentor me, or like having a bubble bath, or having a nap, or whatever, and spending those hours just like forcing myself to intentionally rest and to pour back in what I've...
Right, so sometimes guys who teach on this will say Sabbath is for rest, you mentioned that first, but then you added a little element to that, which was what people call delight. So Sabbath is for rest, but Sabbath is also for delight. So you think of things that are life-giving, enjoyable, but that aren't work-oriented somehow, that still leave you restful. So whether that's,
And I think that the point of us trying to put that into our family was that I had a really hard time getting my kids to rest, right? Because they are kids, so they just go, and they just are always moving. And so like the idea of let's focus on good things was easier for them. Like what do we need to do to replenish our body? What do we need to do right now that feels good to like, get in touch with God? What feels good? Like what is a good thing?
So because if you're trying to teach a child Sabbath, to say sit still, fold your hands and do nothing is probably not appealing.
No, they're gonna not like Sabbath.
And napping's not appealing either.
Napping's not appealing.
Right?
Yeah.
So then Sabbath, and this was Jesus' problem with the Pharisees, right? Is he's like, no, Sabbath is a gift. Right? It's not meant to wreck your life. It's meant to bless you. So,
We loved doing it. And it started with our CC community because Fridays were usually our community day, and then we would crash Friday evenings, and so it became, what can we do to fill ourselves back up? And rest, too.
It just kind of gives you an excuse to say no to the rest of the world, which I think in itself is just rest these days. Like, just, nope, sorry, can't go anywhere. Like, this is We're just home with our family.
Yeah.
Sometimes with friends, like, it just depends. But.
Yeah.
And then do you have to have a strategy to keep yourself from binging Netflix while you're doing that? Because I just wonder, like, sometimes when we turn off all our activity, our souls just go straight to a screen.
Yeah, so I was going to say the phone, right? Your
Okay.
device, your social media device, your screen.
Yeah.
That is limited. Maybe every once in a while it's a movie night. We get to
Right.
do a movie night with our
Right.
family. But if that's like, the kids are like, well, every night we do Sabbath, it's movie and junk food. Like, well, I don't know if that's like pouring back into you fully.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think too, that's the other thing with, is there's always something to look at and to be learning from. And so it's just to shut that off and to
Right.
learn to not be.
So that's also part of the overwhelm, right?
Yes.
Just to be like, I'm gonna not have a screen
Yeah.
feeding me
Yeah.
information or stuff or entertainment or whatever
Yeah.
at times.
And we have, like, I have a couple of questions that my kids have to answer.
Mhm.
So it's like what can we do for our body to replenish?
Mhm.
What can we do? What is something that you enjoy that you would like to do
Sure.
now? What is something that you need to do but you maybe don't want to do?
Mhm.
So, like, we have a couple of questions that we can kind of cycle through where it's like, what do you think? Like, do you need to take a bath today? Yeah, probably you do, but you might not want to. Like,
Right.
just some of the things, yeah. And I think for myself too, I think that keeps me from just like completely zoning out. It's like, you know, I actually really need to sit down and just listen to something that gives me life, like a sermon or something to like
Yeah.
fill me, but giving myself permission to have time to do that, because I don't give myself permission to do that during the week a lot because I just don't have time,
Sure.
right? So it's like a guilt-free time to just
To do something like
to do, yeah.
Very cool. Well, there's lots of stuff, you guys. So we're learning how to have victory at home, and we've talked through quite a few different aspects. I think the friendship thing is really cool that you guys in particular have developed, and then working through some of those other challenges, right? That we all face, and they look different in different people's homes. But to just gain wisdom along the way and look for guidance, look outside yourselves, ask others is fun. So thank you very much for sharing all that stuff with us, and we will get you back some more to continue to share your amazing wisdom.